By the time you reach the middle of your life, 95% of who you are is a set of memorized subconscious programs. At this stage, your daily actions are less the result of conscious choice and more the output of a biological machine running on repeat. This creates a highly predictable biological artifact. Every habit and emotional reflex you have is hardwired into your nervous system by the cumulative weight of your past experiences, leaving very little room for a truly free individual to exist in the present. This network of interacting brain regions is known as the default mode network. It is the primary circuit responsible for maintaining your internal narrative and your sense of self-identity. The default mode network operates as a predictive loop. It relies on the decaying data of your past memories to guess what your future will look like, ensuring that your tomorrow is essentially a replica of your yesterday. Running this predictive machinery requires an immense amount of vital energy. This consumption keeps your nervous system in a state of high arousal, effectively trapping you in a cycle where you are constantly bracing for threats that only exist in your memory. Think about the specific thing you are obsessing over today. Stop right now and tell me in the comments down below. What is the exact daily deadline or trivial task you are currently wasting your vital energy trying to control? Because this system is designed for survival rather than freedom, your waking life is often spent reacting to these internal alarms. You are not living in the present. You are chemically navigating a disaster movie written by your own past. The human body is a completely objective machine. It lacks the ability to differentiate between a real-life physical threat and the toxic emotions you generate through thought alone. When you ruminate on your failures, your brain triggers the same stress response it would for a physical crisis. This forces your body to relitigate your darkest moments dozens of times before you've even stepped out of your home. This cycle provides a specific physiological payoff. Even if the emotion is painful, the resulting rush of adrenaline is highly familiar, providing a jolt of intensity that your nervous system begins to recognize as a baseline. Over time, your body develops a literal chemical dependency on this state of high alert. You begin to chase the familiar rush of panic simply because it is the only stimulus powerful enough to break through the numbness of your programmed routine. This is the core of the biological trap. We often persist in our own suffering because the chemical rush of anxiety is the only thing that makes a highly predictable, automated mind feel like it is still alive. This addiction often manifests as 3 a.m. insomnia. Even when your life is going well, your mind frantically invents worst-case scenarios, keeping you awake in a state of terror that has no basis in your current reality. During these spirals, your brain is locked into the high-frequency state of beta brainwaves. This is the frequency of hypervigilance, where your analytical mind acts as a warden, keeping you focused on external threats and perceived dangers. In this over-aroused state, you become obsessed with time and control. You find yourself desperately trying to predict a physical reality that is fundamentally shifting, driven by a brain that refuses to stop analyzing. To quiet this noise, we often turn to screens and video games. These external stimulations provide a temporary distraction, numbing the hyper-aroused feeling, but never actually changing the underlying brainwave pattern. I want you to share a story in the comments about a time when a disaster you intensely feared actually turned out to be a massive blessing. Distractions provide a momentary relief, but they are not a cure. Once the screen goes dark, the beta wave prison remains, and the hollow feeling of being trapped in your own predictable responses returns. Escaping this loop requires utilizing a biological pathway located within your own chest, one that functions independently of the predictive machinery in your brain. The process begins when you consciously shift your attention away from the material world and your daily stressors. By resting your focus in pure, empty space, you stop feeding the default mode network the data it needs to keep the loop running. As this focus shifts, the compartments of your brain that were firing in a chaotic, uncoordinated fashion begin to synchronize. This alignment allows the brain to move out of its fragmented state and into a condition of organized electrical power. When you cultivate an elevated emotion, like unconditional gratitude, your heart creates a state of coherence. This sends a powerful wave of energy into the brain, physically shutting down the analytical critic and the high-stress beta waves locking you in past programming. This shift pushes your brainwaves down into the fluid state of alpha. In alpha, the brain is more receptive and less bound by the rigid, predictive loops of the default mode network. By using heart coherence to move from the high-alert beta state into the synchronized alpha state, you interrupt the automated patterns of your biology. It is through this neurological shift that you finally move past your memorized identity and regain the capacity for genuine, unprogrammed action. Many of us have spent years digging through our childhoods, certain that identifying the exact moment things went wrong will finally set us free. However, biology presents a contradiction. Revisiting a traumatic event while remaining in the same toxic emotional state that defined the original experience prevents resolution. As this diagram illustrates, repeating that analytical cycle actually wires the circuits of pain deeper into your biology. Every time the signal passes through, the pathway grows thicker and more rigid. You cannot create a new reality while operating from the known, comfortable misery you have memorized. The body simply continues to fire the old signals. Take a look at your own daily routine. What is one specific thing you are currently wasting energy trying to control? Drop your memory in the comments below. When you manage suffering through analysis, you reinforce the physical structures that keep you stuck. Moving forward requires a direct intervention in the system, shifting away from thought and toward biological change. Escaping the paralysis of fear requires bypassing the conscious, analytical mind that created the loop in the first place. This shift happens in the theta state. This hypnotic frequency allows the brain to suspend its normal limitations and firewalls, opening the door to the subconscious operating system. In this frequency, a memory that once caused distress can be stripped of its emotional charge. The event remains, but the visceral reaction fades, leaving behind pure data and wisdom. When was the last time you felt a genuine sense of connection or gratitude, entirely disconnected from your digital devices? Tell us about that moment below. Reclaiming that frequency is vital for the transition ahead. Accessing the subconscious serves as a biological mechanism to wipe the old hardware clean. It is a process of unsticking yourself from familiar suffering so new patterns can emerge. True meditation is a ruthless, scientific process. It involves a high degree of focus to catch yourself going unconscious and dragging your primal body back into the present moment. Like training a wild animal, you must execute a will that is greater than your automated, subconscious programs. The most effective biological tool for this takeover is mental rehearsal. By closing your eyes and intensely choosing a different behavior, you prime the brain to fire new circuits. Dormant nodes ignite, branching out to form entirely new networks. This forces the brain to build the physical architecture as if the event has already happened. When you maintain this intention, the body eventually surrenders to a new mind, breaking the cycle of automated programming. As the body surrenders, energy previously trapped in the stress response is liberated throughout the nervous system. This occurs because the amygdala, the brain's survival center, effectively turns off. This sends a signal to the entire body that the period of trauma has concluded. The shift goes deeper than brainwaves. It involves down-regulating the stress genes that contribute to chronic disease. As the markers on this DNA strand dim, the body's internal environment begins to change. Data shows that those who commit to this process can shut off their default mode network. Biologically, their neurochemistry mirrors the state of a heavy psychedelic experience, achieved entirely through internal willpower. Will you continue to let a memorized past dictate your future, or will you execute a will that is greater than your biology starting tonight? Declare your commitment to the transition below. When you master your emotions, you master your creations. By changing the internal signal, you change the physical architecture of your life.